sound like you were kind of an organizer in the effort.
Yeah, so I was a steering committee member on the Advocates for Minor Leaguers, that group that was formerly a nonprofit before they got formally introduced as part of the MLBPA.
Obviously, you've been in the minors for a while. What experiences have you had that led you to say, hey, this is something we really need to do?
There's dozens. Yeah, I've played for 10 seasons. So this unionization effort honestly hit pretty hard to me personally. I've seen and been a part of 6 guys cramming ourselves into a 2-bedroom apartment with nothing but an air mattress or the floor to sleep on, no furniture inside. I've seen teammates who have had to sleep in their cars or the clubhouse to save some money because they couldn't afford rent. I know what it's personally like to not be able to afford, rent, grocery bill, take a gas, just because our salaries are so suppressed. So changes like that to the working conditions is something that I've gone through, I've experienced, and was willing to take on a leadership role to make some change happen.
Obviously, this is something that's been talked about for a while, but it seems to have really accelerated here in the last year, and then particularly in the last couple months. Are you surprised at the speed at which it's all happened, and kind of what's the next step from here?
Certainly, the speed of which this all happened has been somewhat surprising, but what hasn't been surprising is the support that we've gotten from the players. It's been unanimous, overwhelming support from all the players. Like, this is a player-driven unionization process, 100%. Without the players, without having conversations and talking through things and getting everyone on board, this just certainly doesn't happen. So, the process was slow to have those conversations with players. To educate guys was certainly a challenge, just to educate guys on why unionization matters. But once we got to the point where MLBPA was there to help and to assist the process, that's when really everything took off, because guys saw that, Tony Clark and Bruce Meyer were all on board and there to help us and give us their resources. So that's kind of, for me, the moment where everything kind of clicked and everything kind of sped up was when MLBPA stepped in.
What comes next? Obviously, it sounds like you're going to try to negotiate not you personally, but the minor leaguers will try to negotiate something with Major League Baseball. This will be separate, right? Than from the Major League players' contracts or yes, their collective bargaining agreement.
Yeah, so we're under the umbrella of the MLBPA, but we're going to have our own separate CBA, meaning that we're going to have minor league players at the table to negotiate and bargain on behalf of minor league players with the owners of Major League Baseball. So we're going to have our own separate CBA that we're going to have a say in, and we're looking on doing that as soon as the 2023 season. The next step for us is pretty unclear. Things are happening so fast. So I would expect in the next day or so, or even within the next week, to start the process of forming kind of a player executive board similar to what we see with the MLBPA. That's going to be a challenge in and of itself, just because of the turnover rate and rosters in the minor leagues and just the sheer number of guys. But we're going to start organizing what our priorities are when we do get that seat at the table. We know exactly the directions that we're going to head and the things that we're going to fight for.
That's what I was going to ask. Certainly, you have a lot of experience. What are and I know Major League Baseball has, tried to make some changes, tried to up the salary, tried to change some housing rules. But when you look at these negotiations, what are the top 2 or 3 things that you'd like to see included in a CBA with minor leaguers?
Yeah, I mean, Major League Baseball has certainly given us some marginal gains in the last few years. The housing policy was probably the biggest one, and that wasn't possible without the advocates for minor leaguers giving that public attention. And so I just want to hit on that real quick. Like, that was, the biggest thing that we've won as a group for minor leaguers ever, right? To get housing paid for. I know I've talked to a lot of my teammates this year who are eligible for that policy, and that's a game changer for them to not have to worry about that burden of finding a house and acting like a real estate agent at the beginning of the season. We're baseball players, we're not real estate agents, so that's just such a huge thing not to worry about. But
well, you're never sure how long you're going to be in that house, right? You could get called up, you could get sent down, so to have to sign a lease is something that probably doesn't make sense with the lifestyle.
Right. You're exactly right. Guys, I've seen guys in the past, be on the hook for multiple leases, and you're already paying 100 extra salary to live in one spot. Then you got to pay for another spot. It gets sent back and forth. It's just an absolute nightmare. So the housing policy was for sure a huge win for guys. But moving forward, the probably the low hanging fruit that we're going to go after in the next CBA is number one, salary, and number two, the 7-year player contract that guys sign when they get drafted. A lot of people don't know that you're under team control for 7 years after you get drafted. So most guys don't reach minor league free agency until they're in their mid 20s. So we would like to see that contract decreased to give guys a chance at the free market. That way they can earn a little bit more money a little sooner in their career. But perhaps establishing like a minimum salary at the lower levels. That way guys are not losing money, or they certainly don't have to get another job in the off season to support themselves.
You think those are realistic gains at this point? I mean, certainly Major League Baseball has recognized you guys, so obviously that they're willing to negotiate at some point here. You think those are things that they're willing to negotiate on?
I mean, the reality is that we've been for decades we've been paid under poverty level, right? That's a fact, So we're not looking to be paid like major leaguers. Certainly, that's not our worth, but we are certainly looking to be paid a fair livable wage. It's time for change, so I can't speak on behalf of future negotiations, but this is honestly, to me, this is about just dignity, fairness, and respect, and it's time for players to have a seat at the table, and to just have a voice, at least to say, and how our careers are directly affected.
Certainly you've been in the minors for a long time. Are you worried at all about the repercussions of being a leader in this effort, to what it might do to your career?
Yeah, certainly. At first, when I first got involved with this, I was scared. I'd be lying to you if I told you I wasn't. But I've said this in the past, but I'll say it again. In my heart of hearts, I knew this was the right thing to do. I've seen and been a part of, some very inadequate working conditions. And in my heart of hearts, I know that this is the right thing to do, to step into this leadership role, and assume any risk that comes with it. By MLB voluntarily recognizes us as part of the union, I think that decreases the fear a little bit. They're at least admitting that they're willing to negotiate a little bit. So I think now I'm a little less scared than I was in the past. But yeah, certainly when I first got involved, that was something that I thought about was is it worth it? Is it worse? Is it worth losing my career over this? But ultimately, yeah, it was.
It's a remarkable group, right? You've got people like yourself that have been in the minors for a long time. You've got 18-year-olds from the Dominican or Venezuela. It's a diverse group. How do you think you guys were able to get everybody sort of on board with a union, and probably having to explain what a union does, what a union could do? It probably wasn't an easy task.
Yeah, certainly. We come from a bunch of different countries, and we speak a bunch of different languages. We're anywhere from, like you said, 16 to 30 something, in the minor leagues. So, but there is one commonality, is that we all do speak the language of baseball, right? And we all have the same dream. We all have the same dream of making it to the major leagues and just living out this dream. And so ultimately, if you connect with, every person, no matter where you come from, there's a commonality there. And once you just start explaining to them that, our lives could be better if we organize, if we unionize, if we come together and we just get a seat at that table, no matter where you come from, this is the right thing to do.
Great. Do you think you're going to try to get on the bargaining committee or the executive committee? Is that the next step for you personally?
I've given it a little bit of thought, and if that question is raised to me, I'd certainly be open to the possibility. I've been involved since the beginning. I'm a little bit older, so I've kind of seen, the grind, if you will. But our goal is to definitely have like a diverse player executive board. We need guys from rookie ball all the way up to AAA, guys who've been in the big leagues, guys who are right on the doorstep. We'll have that vote down the road, but personally, it'd be something I'd be interested for sure.
Great. Anything else I didn't ask about that's pretty important to this effort?
Not really. I just want to make it a point to get across that, this is honestly a very historical thing that we're going through. There's nothing like this that's really ever happened in our sport. And ultimately, this is the right thing to do for baseball, for the minor leaguers, for the fans. This is going to make our product better. Like we just invest in ourselves a little bit more, and we get together, and this is going to make the baseball a better product, and that's ultimately what we want.
To have the power of the MLBPA and Tony Clark and some of the names you mentioned, that's gotta help you guys, right? Much easier than kind of forming a union on your own and not having some of the brain power and the firepower behind you.
Yeah, I mean, for a while it was just the advocates and the executive director Harry Marino and a couple of player outreach coordinators. We were just organizing ourselves and having Zoom calls. So like that's kind of how logistically it worked. And then one Zoom call a few months ago, I sat on. This is just player leadership of the steering committee, Harry, and a couple of player outreach coordinators. We were sitting on a Zoom call, and from what I understood, it was just a very routine Zoom call. And all of a sudden, Tony Clark comes up on the screen, and that for me, that was the moment I was like, "Holy shit, this is happening! Like we are deep, and this is going to happen." And he, offered his words of encouragement and gave us their undying support, and that's really kind of the moment where it took off.